The main character, Haruto, was originally a student who had been humiliated in school for a long time, so he stayed at home every day and dared not to go to school. One day when he was checking his mobile phone at home, the phone screen glowed white, and when the light dissipated, he found himself dead and appeared in a strange space. Soon a goddess showed up in front of him, telling him that after selection, he was chosen to be a candidate for reincarnation, and that she would then give him powerful superpowers and make him reincarnated in a magic world. Later, with a flash of light, Haruto wakes up and finds himself reincarnated as a child of the king in another world. The king is very happy to see his child born at first, but when he takes out the orb to test Haruto's magic level, he immediately becomes sad. According to the orb, Haruto's magic level is only 02, and he does not have any attributes, so he can only cast barrier magic. In this world, people who have higher magic level have higher status. The other princes have reached at least level 40 to 50, and Haruto, who only reaches level 2, is simply a shame for the royal family. So the king decides to abandon him. The result of Haruto's magic level is actually a misunderstanding. The goddess has given Haruto the magic level of 1002, but the orb is unable to observe more than 2 digits, so the king thinks Haruto is a loser, and in fact he has super powerful strength. Haruto doesn't know he is powerful as well, and at this moment, he is already thrown by his father into a forest frequented by monsters. He heard them talking just now, and he still keeps the memories of his previous life, unwilling to die like this in another world. So he tries to cast the non-attribute barrier magic, only to find that it is very easy to cast this magic, which can turn into anything he thinks in his mind. Also, he can make himself float in the air by putting the barrier magic on himself, which surprises him. At this moment, a huge wolf monster sets its eyes on him. In a panic, Haruto casts barrier magic to attack. He first controls a nearby tree to smash into the wolf, but it fails to defeat it. After that, he digs out a stone as large as an island directly from the nearby ground and intends to smash it at the wolf. The wolf, named Flay, is frightened by Haruto's power and quickly falls to the ground begging for mercy. As a baby, Haruto is unable to speak, but he suddenly thinks that he can use barrier magic to control his vocal cords to vibrate. After trying, he can really speak. Now Flay is even more shocked. Sensing the powerful mana around Haruto, she misunderstands that Haruto is the reincarnation of the demon lord and quickly submits to him, saying that she is willing to be his familiar. At this moment, Haruto falls to the ground weakly because he just excessively used his magic power. Hungry, Haruto asks Flay for food. The next moment, Flay turns into a beautiful girl and Flay wants to feed Haruto. But she knows that humans have breast milk only during pregnancy, so she proposes to have intimacy with Haruto. This frightens Haruto. Even if he can do that, he will die of hunger before Flay can produce breast milk, not to mention that he is incapable of having intimate interactions with her now. Just then a strong man comes here with a bag of breast milk. The man is named Gold, a relative of the king and a count of the country. Gold once had a child who died before birth. After hearing that the king abandoned his child, he comes to rescue Haruto. After being saved by Gold, Haruto has become his child, and Flay, who has been following Haruto, has become his familiar. Haruto wants to go out and practice after being weaned, intending to explore this world. But Gold's family treats him so well and he is embarrassed to leave. Under their care, Haruto has been growing up healthy. Interestingly, Gold's daughter Charlotte seems to be afraid of Haruto. She is willing to interact with others except for Haruto, who thinks it is the smell of a middle-aged man from his previous life on his body that causes his sister to hate him and feels very disappointed. As he grows older, Haruto wants to go out and explore the wonderful world. If you like my videos, you can support me by becoming a channel member, or you can donate me on Buy Me a Coffee. Your support will encourage me to make more videos. You can find links in the video description.
Yeah.
But he is afraid that the Gold family will be sad. So he casts barrier magic to create a person who looks exactly like him, and he intends to find an opportunity to sneak away with Flay. Just then, Gold finds Haruto. He knows Haruto has a low magic level, and in order for Haruto to survive in this world, he decides to teach him swordsmanship. Haruto is afraid of pain, so he puts a barrier on himself when training with Gold. What happens next surprises Gold. Haruto wields the sword so fast that even Gold, a master of swordsmanship, can't see it clearly, and he can even jump over 10 meters high. Shocked Gold says that it is impossible for Haruto to do these if he doesn't reach level 30. Gold's words remind Haruto of an earlier incident. In fact, he also doubted his real strength before. In the years he lived in Gold's house, he made an orb that could observe the magic level of more than 3 digits, but it still showed that his magic level is 002. Thinking they said that the highest magic level in human history in this world is 77, he was disillusioned because he wouldn't have a magic level of 4 digits. But he possesses non-attribute magic, so he can cast magic more efficiently, and he guesses that this is the superpower that the goddess gave him. Gold cancels today's training and returns to the house looking very distressed. He voices his doubt to his wife that Haruto might be a demon. According to the secret information of the royal family, someone once had a baby with the demon race. In addition, Flay, who is a demon, has great respect for Haruto, who possesses terrifying strength and is probably not the king's child, but the demon's. This incident must remain under wraps, otherwise Haruto will be very dangerous. Anyway, Haruto is still their child and Gold vows to keep him safe. Since Gold recently wants to train Haruto in swordsmanship, Haruto can't leave for the time being. On this day, when he is resting in bed, he hears a noise from outside and goes out to check, only to find many of Gold's soldiers have been seriously injured, because they were frequently attacked by bandits. Gold blames himself for not taking good care of his soldiers. Seeing this, Haruto feels very uncomfortable. He is very concerned about his family's feelings, so he makes a decision in his heart and then secretly heals the soldiers on the spot with barrier magic, which is one of the functions of the barrier magic that he has developed over the years. In addition to healing wounds, barrier magic can also monitor an area. At night, Haruto casts barrier magic to observe the castle's surroundings, intending to help Gold defeat the bandits. Soon he discovers the stronghold of the bandits and takes Flay with him to go there. These bandits are just ordinary humans, and in the face of Haruto, who has powerful magic power, they are very weak, just like ants. Within seconds, Haruto subdues the bandits' leader. During the ensuing interrogation, Haruto learns a secret. The bandits are actually spies from the country next door, and they sent soldiers to work undercover in the border guards, so that they could easily defeat Gold soldiers. Upon learning of this information, Haruto does not hesitate to ask Flay to cast fire magic to completely burn the stronghold. In Haruto's heart, his family is the most important, and whoever dares to hurt his family, he will definitely make them pay. Soon after, Haruto writes an anonymous letter telling Gold the truth about the bandit incident. When Gold hears that the enemy's stronghold has been burned down, he immediately asks Flay if she, who is skilled in fire magic, has done this, but Flay denies it. A few days after the bandit incident, while Haruto is resting in his room, his barrier that monitors Charlotte sounds an alarm. In addition to monitoring, barrier magic can also raise alerts when the monitored one is in danger. It turns out that today, Charlotte and her mother go to a nearby town to attend a banquet, and worried about them, Haruto set up this barrier around them, but he does not expect that they are really in danger. Just as the mother and daughter are in despair, a voice suddenly sounds in Charlotte's ears and guides them to flee to the depths of the forest. What she doesn't know is that the voice is actually coming from Haruto through barrier magic. Under Haruto's guidance, they hide in a cave. Afraid that the enemy will discover the cave, the mother goes out alone to lure the enemy away, but is surrounded by soldiers. She knows that if she is caught, she will suffer something worse than death, so she intends to end her life. At the critical moment, Haruto finally arrives to save her, but she passes out. Seeing his mother so desperate, Haruto is furious, bursting into terrifying power and completely killing the enemies. After calming down, Haruto carries his mother to the cave to find Charlotte, and just when he wants to secretly leave, he is discovered by Charlotte. The reason why Charlotte has been afraid to approach Haruto is also revealed at this time. It turns out that Charlotte has a special ability, which allows her to feel the strong aura of Haruto, so she dares not get close to him. But after today's incident, she is sure Haruto must be a good person. Haruto feels a bit troubled when his sister discovers his identity, and he can only make an agreement with Charlotte that his identity must not be revealed. At night, Gold is very happy that his wife and daughter successfully get rid of danger. Compared to this, what surprises Gold more is that Charlotte, who has always stayed away from Haruto, unexpectedly throws herself in his arms today, and the siblings become closer suddenly. Seeing this, the father and mother feel very happy, but Flay is a bit jealous. From this day on, Charlotte is very close to Haruto and will often come to his room to play with him. She discovers the monitoring barrier in Haruto's room, and Haruto falsely claims that it is ancient magic that he has recently been researching. Hearing that Haruto is interested in ancient magic, Charlotte tells him there are many books about ancient magic in the castle's library. Led by Charlotte, Haruto reads many books on ancient magic and feels very excited. According to the books, ancient magic is a kind of attributeless magic which is very similar to the barrier magic he masters, and magicians can turn it into modern magic by attaching attributes to it. Ancient magic can also create passages between different worlds. This reminds Haruto of his previous life, where he saw a similar plot in an anime. Charlotte curiously asks Haruto what anime is, and Haruto can only tell Charlotte the principles of animation. He thinks Charlotte isn't interested in esoteric knowledge, but Charlotte excitedly says that she also wants to watch anime. In order to fulfill Charlotte's request, Haruto, with the knowledge of the books on ancient magic, successfully uses barrier magic to connect to the Japanese anime channel in 2 weeks. Charlotte is immediately shocked when she sees the anime, but soon there is another problem. The anime characters speak Japanese and Charlotte can't understand it. To help her understand it, Haruto starts to teach her Japanese. He thinks it would take her a long time to learn this, but it only takes her 2 weeks to master this language. Only then does Haruto realize Charlotte is a girl with great talent. From this day on, Charlotte comes to Haruto every day to watch the anime. In order to prevent Charlotte from becoming addicted to it, Haruto stipulates that Charlotte can only watch anime for 3 hours a day, much to Charlotte's disappointment. Soon after, Charlotte's father Gold hears that there have been many robbers in the neighborhood recently and leads his subordinates to fight these enemies. Charlotte worries that her father will be in danger. Thinking that Haruto is a companion in justice who saved her and her mother, she asks Haruto to help her father, just like the common rider she saw recently. In order to fulfill his sister's request, plus Haruto also worries Gold's safety, he, at Charlotte's request, uses the barrier magic to put on a set of black armor and becomes a handsome black knight. At first, Charlotte also wants to help Gold but is rejected by Haruto. Seeing Charlotte a bit unhappy, Haruto can only take out a screen through which Charlotte can see Haruto's next moves. Later, with the monitoring magic nearby, Haruto finds the bandits who have been causing chaos recently and he easily takes them all down. Just then, Gold happens to arrive. In order to conceal his identity, Haruto has to lie that everything he did is for justice and he is the executive who guards justice. Gold thinks that the man in front of him may be the one who saved his wife and daughter not long ago. But before he can express his gratitude, Haruto runs away after saying these shameful words. What devastates Haruto even more is that since Charlotte saw him fight handsomely, she has always wanted him to continue helping the innocent residents. In order not to disappoint his sister, Haruto has to take action frequently. After countless battles, Haruto has a title, the Black Knight, and he also becomes a hero in Charlotte's heart. But fighting every day makes Haruto very tired. So he creates a doppelganger for himself with the knowledge in the books on ancient magic, and this doppelganger can help him deal with more things. After he finally arranges everything, one day 2 distinguished guests come to Gold's house, and they are the daughter and the son of the king. If Haruto were not abandoned by the king, these 2 people would have been his brother and his sister. The prince is very arrogant. When he hears Haruto can only reach level 2, he intends to humiliate him, offering a duel with him. Haruto checks the prince's level and finds he is now at level 9 and can reach level 40, which is thought to be excellent but is still a bit far away from the legendary hero. Unsurprisingly, Haruto easily defeats the prince. Unconvinced, the prince fires a fireball at Haruto, which is easily blocked by him. After that, Haruto casts attributeless magic to replicate fire magic that is 100 times more powerful than the prince's. This makes the prince, who has always been arrogant, completely convinced, and he kneels down and admits defeat. Everyone present is shocked by Haruto's performance. The princess apologizes for the prince's impolite behavior, and she can tell that Haruto is not as simple as it seems. The prince and princess temporarily settle in Gold's castle. Haruto resumes his routine after receiving the 2, and at Charlotte's request, he will often turn into the Black Knight to help the nearby residents. Besides, Flay also joins the righteous at Charlotte's request. She disguises herself with a sexy black leather jacket. Due to her hot temper, she will cast terrifying fire magic every time. In order not to let things get out of hand, Haruto has to bring the situation under control with barrier magic. At night, Haruto hears that the prince invites Charlotte to visit a nearby farm tomorrow, which should be a social etiquette of the royal family. For Charlotte's safety, Haruto takes a look at the route Charlotte will take tomorrow and really finds a strange place, where a group of men in black are performing strange rituals. After Haruto arrives, the men in black appear to be very alarmed and attack him. They summon many skeleton knights through magic arrays and even summon powerful stone giants. However, for the powerful Haruto, these just cost him a little more time. Haruto grabs the leader of the men in black and forces him to reveal what they are doing here. Seeing that the leader does not intend to say, Haruto digs a pit, directly intending to bury the leader's subordinates alive. This ruthless act frightens the leader, who hastens to confess that they are here to ambush Charlotte, who is traveling tomorrow, and that all this is actually ordered by the king's wife. She is actually Haruto's birth mother in this world. Thinking that she not only abandoned him but also tries to hurt his family, Haruto is furious. He asks the leader why the king's wife wants to do this. The leader tells Haruto that it is because Charlotte has great talent. This world is dominated by the strong and the king's wife is afraid Charlotte will surpass her when she grows up, at which point the genius Charlotte together with her court father is likely to threaten the royal power. That's why the king's wife wants to kill Charlotte when she is a child. Haruto immediately thinks that the soldiers who assassinated Charlotte and her mother must have been ordered by the king's wife. He vows never to let anyone hurt his family, even his birth mother. Later he deals with these men in black. The next day Haruto follows Charlotte to the farm. He then privately approaches Gold and asks him a question. If the king's wife wants to hurt Charlotte, what will you do? To Haruto's surprise, Gold is also aware of the king's wife's hostility toward Charlotte. He tells Haruto about the past. At that time, due to the king's weak abilities, the royal family's prestige began to decline. Until one day a talented female knight appeared, and this female knight led the army to win in many battles that they were originally impossible to win. Later the king married the female knight and the royal family's prestige was restored to its peak again. This female knight is the current king's wife, and now she is becoming more and more ambitious even than the king. Gold does not dare to resist easily because it will not only divide the country but also put his family in danger. Haruto tells Gold that this will not have happened if Gold is the king. Gold knows he has no political talent, but he believes in Haruto, whose growth has been in his eyes. Haruto, though not against Gold's words, thinks to himself that what he is going to do is not to be the king, but to protect Charlotte until she becomes a good queen. He looks at the lovely Charlotte not far away and he makes a decision that he is going to see the vicious mother personally. This must be the most tragic male protagonist I have ever seen. When he was reborn in a new world, he was abandoned by his parents. Now he finally lives in a warm family, but his mother, who abandoned him, frequently sends killers to destroy his family. His mother Giselle receives a report about the failed attempt on Charlotte's life. Learning that the Black Knight is protecting her, she throws her drink at them, calling them useless, and she thinks she will need to handle it herself. But at that moment Haru arrives, instantly taking out her men with his barriers. Giselle wonders how he made it into her castle, which should be protected by barriers, but Haru calls them weak, saying he just broke through them. Giselle prepares to deal with him, and Haru is surprised she can use 3 spells in a row. He gets trapped in a sphere of water, starting to drown, but he uses a barrier to help him jump out. Giselle follows up with ice magic, which Haru is able to defend against, so she then blasts him with her fire magic. Haru drops to the ground and Giselle starts to gloat, saying he was no challenge, but Haru just gets back up, brushing off the attack, and Giselle wonders who he is. Haru starts to retaliate, attacking with a barrage, and Giselle struggles to defend herself. She thinks he is even stronger than the Demon King and she starts to run out of mana. But she charges at him with her sword and Haru fights using his own sword. Giselle gets on top of him, thinking she is unrivaled with the sword, but Haru ends up disarming her. He prepares to punish her, creating a collar around her neck, and he tells her she will lose her head if she tries to take it off. She wonders what he wants, and Haru tells her he has one demand, telling her to keep her hands off Charlotte and his family, warning her what will happen if she disobeys. 5 years later, things have remained peaceful and we see Charlotte playing out in the snow. Haru finds it too cold outside, so he just wants to go back to his room. He wonders if Flay is cold in her outfit, and we see her shaking, but she claims to be fine. Haru can see through her lie, so he gives her a new outfit and tells her to speak up if she has a problem. Charlotte tells him about a special move that she thought of, saying she isn't strong enough to use it, so she asks him to try it out. She explains how to do it and he thinks it's ridiculous, but he can't say no to her. He prepares his magic, performing a chant that he finds embarrassing, and he ends up drilling a huge hole in the ground. Charlotte is impressed and Haru is glad he could make her happy, but their parents suddenly appear, wondering what's going on, so Haru quickly uses his magic to create the Black Knight, who flies away, and he blames the hole on him, saying the Black Knight was passing by and showed off his special attack.
What? I'm out, man.
Charlotte quickly agrees with the explanation and their father decides not to look into it. As Charlotte continues to play, Haru asks his father how things have been going. His father mentions how the queen hasn't appeared in public over the last few years, but he is glad there have been no more attempts on Charlotte's life. He has heard rumors that the queen wears a slave collar now, so he wonders if that has something to do with it. Haru is just glad everything is peaceful and he thinks he can finally have a relaxing life as a shut-in, but his father suddenly mentions he will need to start going to school in the capital. Haru is shocked hearing this, and his father says he tried to refuse, but it was beyond his control. Haru instantly refuses, remembering how bad school was in his past life, and he becomes determined to find a way to get out of it. We see them discussing it further. Back at the house, his father reveals it was a direct recommendation from the king. Haru wonders why he would do such a thing, and his father thinks he must have made an impression on Princess Marianne when she came to visit them. His father thinks it would also be a good opportunity for him to meet people and see more of the outside world. Haru doesn't want to cause trouble for him, so he agrees to go. His father mentions he should bring in attendants since he is going to the capital, but he says he can't take Flay since she would end up causing trouble, and his mother suddenly appears volunteering to go with him. But Haru refuses, saying nobody would be bringing their mother with them, and his father tells him he has 3 months to find someone. As Haru heads back to his room, he thinks of a way to get out of going. He explains the situation to his clone. But the clone also refuses, saying he also wants to be a shut-in, so Haru explains his plan, wanting his clone to get expelled from the academy for lack of ability, since it can't use any magic, and that way it won't cause any trouble for his father. His clone thinks he could do it himself, but Haru claims he might accidentally use his barrier magic if he is getting picked on. His clone doesn't want to get beaten up, so Haru promises to use his barrier on him to protect him, and clone reluctantly agrees to the plan. We learned that over the last 5 years Haru built a cabin somewhere far away where he can be a shut-in while his clone covers for him. He relaxes playing video games, but Charlotte still comes to visit so she can watch her favorite animes. She gets depressed, wanting to watch more because she can only visit with Flay since he is so far away, but Haru mentions he could use teleportation magic to help her. He shows it off, passing a ball to her through his barrier, and they are amazed that it works. But he notes he hasn't tested it on a living creature. Flay suggests trying it out with his clone, so he opens up a door to his room. He tells his clone to come through, but he knows what's up and refusing to risk his own life. He taunts Haru to try it himself, but Flay gets annoyed and she jumps right through, grabbing the clone, and she throws him through. But after this test they confirm that it works, so Haru installs a door for Charlotte to come and visit, but his clone heads back, just wanting to be left in peace. Days in his small house thing. Haru tries to play it out, mentioning he needs to take a walk. He takes a stroll, thinking how he barely dodged a bullet and that he needs to find someone right for the job in the next 3 months. He then notices a path in the forest and decides to take it. He finds a village filled with skeletons. The skeleton remembers that these skeletons were called by the summoners he defeated 5 years ago, and they start literally a game event. The dragon shrinks into a girl form, and Haru uses his barrier magic to give her main clothes. The girl is confused because she doesn't know why she has clothes on. She starts panicking and reveals that she feels uneasy if she doesn't understand something. Haru promises to explain to her later and takes his helmet off to introduce himself. The girl reveals she doesn't have a name and asks him to give her one, just like the previous demon lord. Haru shortens her name from Blizzard Dragon to Lisa. She loves it and is pleased to meet him. The shiny moment is interrupted by Flay, who wants to bring up that she was the first one to serve Haru. She's literally bullying Lisa, calling her a second, but Haru simply ignores everything and uses his magic to fly away. Lisa grows some wings and follows him, making Flay realize that she's already losing to the new girl because she cannot fly. Haru introduces Liza to his family, and his father is surprised he dealt with her so quickly. Haru asks for her to be able to stay as one of their maids, and his father doesn't mind, as long as she follows the rules. While Charlotte is excited to meet her, Flay teaches Liza how to be a maid, showing how easily a broom can break and telling her to be careful. But Liza manages to do a great job. They move on to washing dishes, and while Flay breaks every dish, Liza flawlessly cleans her dishes. They try cooking next, and Flay uses her fire, but that just ends up burning everything, while Liza learns from the other maids and she is praised for learning so quickly, which makes Flay jealous. The family enjoys the food that Liza made, and they all compliment her on how good it tastes, making Flay depressed. Natalia wonders what else Liza can do, and she mentions she likes to read, which has helped her learn the fundamentals of magic. Natalia is impressed and she suggests for her to be Charlotte's personal maid. The next day we see Liza teaching Charlotte how to use magic. Charlotte struggles at first, but she manages to create a fire. Liza also helps her with her studies, and they start doing everything together. Charlotte quickly improves, and Haru is amazed seeing Liza teaching and doing laundry at the same time. Haru feels bad seeing her do their chores, and Charlotte worries she has been an inconvenience, but Liza says she has enjoyed serving her, and Charlotte asks her to also be her friend, which Liza happily agrees to. Haru thinks about how Liza is a quick learner, so he thinks she would make the perfect attendant for him, but he doesn't want to take her away from Charlotte after they just became friends. He thinks about it some more, and he realizes he could use his teleportation magic to allow Liza to be in 2 places at once. The next day we see Charlotte in the yard and Liza flies by. Flay claims she can also fly, so Charlotte asks her to teach her, but when Flay are flying it turns out she is just jumping, but Charlotte finds her amazing. Natalia wonders what they are doing, but she thinks flying magic would be too dangerous for Charlotte, making her depressed. Charlotte is about to cry, so Flay rushes to Haru. But he was watching everything and he instantly creates a plane for Charlotte to fly in. Back at the cabin, Haru decides to check their levels and we see that Flay and Liza are both fairly high level, but Haru is surprised when he sees Charlotte's max level is so high, remembering how the Queen's level was only 40. He thinks Charlotte will hit max level in no time, but she disagrees, revealing that when she was a baby she made a fireball before she could even talk, so her mother ended up putting a seal on her. Charlotte wonders about Haru's level and Flay thinks he must be over 100, but he refuses to show them since he knows he is only level 2. Later on we see Charlotte becoming depressed because her favorite show has ended. Liza tells her it's time to go back, but as they leave Haru mentions he is starting school in the capital. Charlotte suddenly thinks of it as a terrifying place and she tells Liza to cancel her plans and summon her knights for an emergency meeting. We see her meeting with Flay, Johnny and the Golem. They discuss Haru going to school and Flay is shocked she didn't know about this. She thinks there's nothing Haru could learn at the school since he's the Demon King, but Johnny reminds her they promised not to reveal his secret. Charlotte is shocked hearing this, wondering why Haru has a secret. She doesn't know, but Johnny comforts her saying she is Haru's favorite, so he will tell her in no time. They move on with and Charlotte mentions a show she watched about a school. But when she asked Haru what a school is like, he calls it the most terrifying place on earth, so she wonders why he would willingly attend one. Based on the anime she watched, she comes up with a theory, thinking there must be a secret student council pulling the strings and corrupting the other students. She thinks it must be part of an even bigger evil syndicate and Haru must be trying to infiltrate and stop them. Flay and Johnny are instantly sold on this theory, so Charlotte thinks they need to start preparing so they can help him. Liza suggests talking with Haru, but Charlotte says they shouldn't bother him with everything, saying they need to be able to think for themselves. Liza ends up reporting everything to Haru and he is glad. He heard about it before anything happened. Liza wonders if he's actually fighting against an evil syndicate and he decides to play along, seeing it as his chance, and he asks for her help, telling her he will need her as his attendant. Liza is surprised by the request, but she agrees, thinking about what's at stake, and Haru starts brainstorming ways to get himself kicked out of the school as soon as possible. Haru prepares to leave for the capital and his father tells him to take care. We see Haru has used his magic to hide Liza's horns and tail, but she is still getting used to it while Flay begs to be brought along. Meanwhile, at the royal palace we see Marianne as she brings news to Elias that Haru is on his way. We learn that Elias was the one who recommended Haru, but he claims he just wants to know how Haru's so strong. He knows Marianne also asked the king on Haru's behalf, making her embarrassed, and he teases her for being obsessed with Haru. They go on to talk about a cult that has recently appeared. It's disguised as a branch of the church and they seem to be extremists that worship demons. Their influence has spread throughout the kingdom and has even infiltrated the academy. There are also rumors they are planning to overthrow the monarchy, and there are an increasing number of nobles joining their cause. Lias has heard rumors that his mother is behind it all, but he doesn't know what she's planning, thinking her behavior has become strange ever since she was given her collar 5 years ago. Everyone knows that the king and queen are no longer on good terms, so Elias thinks his mother must be trying to use the church to take over. He doesn't know what they can do, but Marianne gets the feeling that Haru will be the key to changing the situation. Thinking that his powers would be enough to defeat an entire organization, at that moment Giselle suddenly enters. We learn Marianne is just her stepdaughter and she suddenly starts to choke her, thinking she's being looked down on because of her collar. Lias begs her to stop and she drops Marianne, saying it was just a prank. She also knows about Haru coming to the capital and she tells Lias to get along with him, but she actually wants him to find information about the Black Knight and Lias can only agree. Back at Haru's cabin we learned he set up a door near the capital so he can get there when the time comes. Charlotte reminds him he needs to go and Flay begs him to reconsider. Haru leaves with Liza and they arrive in a forest near the capital. They are still a far way away and Liza knows this is a carriage being chased by a bison. Liza notes that the bison must be hungry. Haru decides to help, transforming into the Black Knight. He flies over, but at that moment the carriage wheel comes loose and the people are about to fall out, but Haru catches with his barrier. The bison continues to charge at the carriage, but there's a girl that steps forward. Haru wonders if she is strong and the girl tries to stop the bison, but she ends up getting thrown away. The bison prepares to charge at her again, but Haru stops it just in time. The girl thanks him for his help, introducing herself as Iris. But she is injured, so Haru instantly healed her with his barrier. Haru also fixes the carriage and the girl is amazed by his abilities. Haru wonders why she is traveling in such a shabby carriage and Iris says that's all she could afford, but she swears to find a way to repay him. Haru ends up relocating the bison and even gives it some food. He and Liza continue on their way, but Liza notes that Iris gave her a strange feeling but she can't put her finger on what it is. They manage to make it to the academy and there's a huge line to get in. As Haru looks at the other people waiting, his anxiety kicks in and he just wants to go home. He eventually gets in and he is given a ton of paperwork to complete. When he makes it to his room he is completely exhausted, so he quickly makes a door and heads back to his cabin. Charlotte and Flay welcome him back but he just wants to rest. He tells Flay to make him some food but Charlotte suggests getting some food in the capital. Flay wants to cook for Haru but Charlotte reminds her of their mission and she ends up agreeing. Charlotte gives Flay a disguise so people don't find out she's a demon, but Haru thinks it's too obvious, so he uses his magic to make her ears and tail invisible. They head into the city and they enjoy a meal at one of the restaurants. Charlotte then takes out a map of the capital, planning to investigate their surroundings, and she orders Liza and Flay to survey the surroundings. Haru wonders what they are planning but Charlotte says it's just a contingency. Haru was left to explore with Charlotte and she calls it a date.
Whoa, 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 hey, 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 hey!
Haru is shocked hearing this and he thinks about how it would be his first date ever. Even though he thinks she doesn't understand what a date is, he decides to go along with this. They walk around the city together and Haru even buys her a necklace. As they continue to explore, Charlotte ends up running into Iris. Haru rushes over but Iris gets a familiar feeling from him and she remembers the feeling of his mana, but Haru says that's impossible, revealing he's only level 2. Iris apologizes for her mistake but she rushes off because she has an interview. As Charlotte watches Iris leave, she also notes that she felt something strange from her. We learned Haru's clone has been covering for him at the academy, but the clone tells Haru there is a proficiency exam before the entrance ceremony. But he refuses to take it because he's been miserable being stuck at the academy. Haru thinks that if he does terribly it could be the perfect chance to get kicked out. We see him sneaking around the academy trying to avoid any social interaction, but he's caught by a professor named Polko. The professor guides him inside, taking him to a lecture room, and Haru thinks about what it's like to start at a new school, but this just makes him depressed. Haru is determined to fail at all costs and the professor gives him his test. He actually has no idea how to answer the question, so he just puts down he has no clue. There's a section about barrier magic which he answers properly, thinking he can't make it too obvious he's trying to fail. There's also a section on ancient magic and Haru remembers the books where he would read about it, accidentally answering the questions without thinking. The professor tells him he also needs to do a mana assessment, but Haru thinks there's no point since he's just going to be level 2. The professor says it's just their procedure and Haru thinks it will be a good chance to show how weak he is. Haru is taken to another room where he meets a tiny doctor named Toretta. She introduces herself as the ancient magic researcher at the school and she tells him not to get ahead of himself just because he was recommended by the king, and she says she will send him home if he gets on her bad side. But this just makes Haru excited. Toretta looks over the answers from his test and she finds them to be quite interesting. They move on to the mana assessment and Haru expects to be level 2. There's a huge amount of energy and the crystal ball ends up shattering. The professors are stunned and Haru is shocked he broke it. He thinks Toretta must be mad at him and he hopes to get sent home, but she just finds him incredible, thinking he must have so much power that the crystal couldn't handle this. She also points out his responses from his test, thinking he is bold to just say he has no clue, and she is impressed by his knowledge about barriers as well as ancient magic. Toretta decides to take Haru as her personal disciple, telling him to join her with her research. But he instantly refuses. Toretta begs him to join but he just excuses himself. He explains to his clone what happened and his clone is annoyed he made such a good first impression, but they are still determined not to give up. The day of the entrance ceremony arrives and Charlotte gives clone Haru a gun. He thinks about how he is forced to take Haru's place, but since he has no magic he is protected by Haru's barrier and the gun is for self-defense. After the entrance ceremony, clone Haru rushes out to get back to his room. He suddenly notices a group of popular students and he thinks he should avoid them at all costs as he passes by. The leader of the group calls out, but he's actually talking to Iris. Clone Haru thinks he should just get back to his room, but he ends up running into Iris. The other student gets annoyed thinking he's being ignored and he introduces himself as Schneider, the student vice president. He calls them out for not paying their respects to him, but Iris claims she just joined the academy so she didn't know that was a rule. Schneider points to clone Haru, telling him to explain how things work, but he suddenly pretends to have a stomach ache trying to get away. But Schneider thinks he's being mocked, so he decides to teach him a lesson. Clone Haru tries to run but he ends up getting hit in the back. However, he gets right back up and Schneider can't believe he's completely fine. Clone Haru quickly pretends to be in pain, but this just pisses Schneider off. Iris apologizes for getting Haru involved, but she doesn't understand why Schneider is so angry, and Clone Haru realizes Iris has even worse social skills than him. Schneider refuses to be made a fool of and he prepares to attack with multiple spells. Clone Haru is left with no choice, firing his gun and then quickly running away. Haru learns about everything that happened and his clone also notes he is being chased around by Toretta. Haru sends him back home to rest and he thinks about what he should do. He receives a duel request from Schneider's associate and he tries to decline it, but the girl tells him it would bring dishonor to his family. Haru thinks it's a massive pain and he wonders how he can get out of the duel without getting hurt. He continues to monitor the girl but sees Iris following the girl onto her carriage. They end up going to Schneider's house and Iris tries to ask for Haru's duel to be called off. She points out his injury, saying he's in no shape to fight, but this only pisses him off. Haru continues to watch and Schneider tells Iris to know her place. Iris wonders what it will take for him to call the duel off and Schneider tells her to strip and dance for him. Iris agrees to this and she actually starts to do it. But Haru can't bear to watch and everything goes dark. He appears as the Black Knight, telling Iris she's being dumb and telling her to go home. Schneider wonders what's going on, calling for help, but Haru mentions they are in another dimension. Schneider wonders who he is and Haru calls himself a hero of justice, saying he's there to punish him. Schneider tries to attack him but Haru suddenly pins his shoulder, causing him to fall in pain. Haru goes over his sins from picking on new students, trying to punish him with a duel and telling Iris to dance for him. Haru tells him to reflect on his actions and tells him he's stuck with the pin in his shoulder until he has atoned for his sins. He mentions that the pin will only get tighter if he tries to remove it or use any magic, but Schneider tries to attack anyway, but this only causes him pain. Haru disappears and everyone is returned to the room. Schneider's friend tries to heal him but this only causes him pain and Schneider swears to get his revenge. As the story continues, we see that Haru is being praised by all the teachers for defeating Schneider and wonders if he is actually level 2. Haru is disappointed as he thought he would be kicked out of the school for his actions, but instead, he was praised. As he walks to his room, he hears students talking about him defeating the Duke's son. The introvert MC can't take this attention and rushes back to his room. On the way, he is stopped by Toretta, who tries to convince him to join his lab. She explains the 2 courses available in the academy, and he has to choose one. The first one is the night course, where he'll learn about magic and its application, for students aspiring to become soldiers to serve their country. The second one is the scholar course, where he'll shut himself in a lab and invent new magic. She asks him to join her lab since he's interested in ancient magic and urges him to sign the papers, but he still hesitates to join her. Just then, Laius arrives, attempting to greet him with a friendly punch, and Haru quickly puts him to the ground, wondering who he is. Marianne arrives, and Haru realizes that it's Laius. Laius wonders if Haru has grown stronger, and Haru wonders what kind of steroids Laius has been taking. Haru asks them what they want, and Laius tells him not to be so formal, but Haru clarifies that he was speaking to his sister, which annoys Laius. Marianne wants Haru to join her lab, while Laius wants him to join his lab, but Toretta interrupts them, asserting that Haru will join her lab, and they start fighting over Haru. Just then, the white-haired girl interrupts them, as she has some business with Haru. Haru uses this opportunity to leave with her and escape the situation. Everyone is shocked, and Marianne wonders about his relationship with the white-haired girl. As they reach outside, the white-haired girl asks him if he is the same person from yesterday, as he seems different. Haru is shocked and accidentally casts a protection barrier. Although she can't see the barrier, she can still feel it, and he is surprised. She tells him that compared to yesterday, she senses a massive amount of magic energy from him, and she's overwhelmed by the pressure. Haru realizes that till now, only Flay has ever mentioned this, and he asks her if she's a demon. She tells him that she's a human, and if she's not, it would be a problem, while Haru thinks that she answers everything in a strange way. He removes the barrier and asks her to pretend that both persons she saw from yesterday and today are the same. However, he can't tell her more about it, and she agrees. She then apologizes to him for dragging him into the Sheeter incident and also thanks him for his help with it. She then requests him to be friends, and he accidentally accepts. He wonders why she wants to be his friend, and she tells her story about how she was abandoned after being born and kept getting thrown out 4 more times. Haru asks her about the reason, and she tells him it started happening after she started to communicate with others. Haru thinks it might be similar to how he talked to Flay as a baby, as a talking baby would be surprising to normal people. She tells him that finally, a monastery took her in, but the only priest who was nice to her died when she was at the age of 5. Since it was an isolated place, she couldn't communicate with anyone, so she doesn't have any common sense. She wants to befriend Haru to learn about the same, but he tells her that she got the wrong person as he is the ultimate shut-in with no friends or common sense. She thinks it's perfect as they are both similar, and Haru thinks about the friends he had in the previous life who always used to make him do stuff for them. This gives him an idea, and he thinks of using her to avoid troublesome stuff at school. So, he decides to become her friend and asks about the course which she had planned to take. He learns that she's going to join Tyrietta's lab, and he decides to join the same. This makes the girl happy, and she expresses her gratitude to him, and Haru wonders why he always gets these nutcases in his harem. He formally introduces himself, and as she's about to reveal her name, the scene cuts to Haru's harem enjoying their hot bath. Char and Flay are upset about Haru being in the academy. Suddenly, Char thinks of something and goes off. As Liza and Flay chat, Liza learns that Flay was close to the Demon King. Flay tells her that he was a kind person who wished for humans and demons to live side by side. She tells her that he sacrificed himself when the Princess of Light appeared but thinks he had planned to reincarnate as a human. She believes that Haru is the Demon King, and he wiped his memories of his past life to throw away his naive side. Back when he named her, she almost called him by his real name, which he used as Demon Lord, Irishphilia, and we see that it's the same name that the white-haired girl tells Haru. Haru thinks it's a long name and decides to call her Iris. She then suggests picking out the classes together, and they go to his room. As they enter the room, Char is already there, who is shocked to see Haru with a girl and wonders if she is his girlfriend. He clarifies to her that she's just a friend, and she's relieved. Char mentions that she's not against Haru building a harem, but she wants to become his second wife in the future, and Haru hopes that she doesn't dump him when she gets old, while Iris wonders if this is a normal conversation between siblings. After that, Haru starts picking classes by rolling a dice, and Iris wonders about this. Char explains that any class that Haru picks will be a cakewalk for him, although Haru doesn't really care about the classes as he plans to drop out. He gets bored after a while and asks Char to pick the rest of the classes for him. Iris is surprised at how Haru lets Char pick her classes, and Char tells her that Haru's purpose to come here is beyond this academy, and it's a secret, so she can't tell her. She also mentions that her brother is a transcendent being who doesn't need to learn from anyone else, and Iris is shocked to hear this. Haru thinks that he can't let her sister loose like this, so he asks her to leave. As Iris wonders how Char got here, Haru covers Iris's eyes so that she doesn't notice the teleportation door. Although Iris is suspicious, he asks her not to worry about it, and hopes to get dropped out of the school soon. 1 week later we see Haru waking up back at the cabin and he is depressed because his classes are finally about to begin. Charlotte gives him his schedule and we learn he is only in the C class, but Charlotte tells him that the classes are regularly shuffled based on his results, so she thinks he will make it to the A class in no time. But Haru seems to have other plans. He's suddenly surprised when he notices the classes that she chose for him, and it turns out she chose all the most advanced classes for him, thinking everything else would be too easy for him. But Haru decides to use this to his advantage, thinking that the other students will think he is cocky for choosing all the advanced classes, and he thinks it will help him get kicked out when he fails. Haru heads to class with Iris and she can't believe that he's only in the C class, revealing that she's in class A. When Haru gets to his class, everyone stares at him and he remembers it's because of the drama he got into with Schneider, so he tries to keep a low profile. The teacher begins the class telling them that since they're in class C they are able to move up or down to other classes, so he decides to start with a test. Haru thinks it's his chance to show how useless he is, but when he gets the test he finds that it's super easy. He compares it to the material that Charlotte learned when she was still a child. Haru thinks that the teacher must be giving them an easy task to help them build confidence. He thinks it would be too obvious if he got everything wrong, so he aims to just pass with a 60. After the test is over, the teacher notes that everyone did poorly with an average score of only 20. He isn't surprised at the result because the average score in Class B is only 50, but he's amazed by Haru's results. Haru wonders what's going on, wondering how the other students could score so poorly with such easy questions, but he comes to the realization that it's not that they're dumb, but it's because he based his assumption on Charlotte and she's just too much a prodigy. The teacher thinks he's amazing and tells him to move straight to the A class. The next day he attends his new class and he's immediately grabbed by Iris and Elias. They fight over who gets to sit with him, but the teacher calls them out for causing a scene. She knows they are only in their first year and she looks down on them for taking her advanced class, warning them that she will kick them out as soon as they get anything wrong. She also knows that Haru and Iris are taking Toretta's lab, so she has an even bigger grudge against them. The teacher introduces herself as Oratoria and she starts giving them a lesson about elemental theory. She calls Iris up for a demonstration and we see she has an affinity with every element. Oratoria is amazed seeing this and she immediately tries to recruit Iris to her lab. But Iris declines the offer. Oratoria goes on to explain that everyone has a main element and the others are considered sub-elements. She explains that it's hard to quantify a person's affinity for sub-elements, but Haru has a status skill that allows him to see everything. Oratoria explains that it's hard to qualify sub-elements because it's possible for the value to change when performing different spells even with the same element. Haru thinks it has something to do with the hidden properties and Oratoria suddenly approaches him wondering how he knows about such a thing. We see that he just read it from his status window and he explains that people can have hidden properties attached to their elements which can boost certain types of skills. Oratoria is amazed by his insight, wondering how he could know about such things because it's on the cutting edge of research and only a few people should know about it. So she immediately tries to get Haru to join her lab, but he also refuses. Later that day we see Haru and Iris arrive at Toretta's lab, but we learned that Haru became too exhausted so he swapped places with his clone. Toretta is happy to have them there, but it seems she's just using them to fill the requirements so that she can keep operating the lab, and she decides to have a party. Clone Haru thinks about sneaking away, but Poka suddenly screams as he discovers a tied-up Schneider. Toretta reveals that she forgot about him saying he came to get help from her, but she thinks it's the perfect chance to research ancient magic because she knows his shoulder is being affected by barrier magic. We learn that ancient magic is different to modern magic because it doesn't require a constant supply of mana. Toretta notes that the barrier in Schneider's shoulder has already been there for 2 days, so she recognizes it as ancient magic. Iris can't believe there's someone who can use ancient magic in the current age, and Toretta starts slapping Schneider to find out who cast the spell on him. Schneider can't give them much information and Toretta thinks he must be scared about revealing their identity, so she theorizes that it's the work of the Black Knight. She finds it strange that the Black Knight appeared in the capital around the same time that Haru arrived, so she starts to suspect him. She grabs onto him begging for him to teach her about ancient magic, but the real Haru suddenly appears as the Black Knight. He tells Toretta that he has no relation to Haru and that he's just in the capital to bring justice. Toretta is excited to meet him and she thinks that he punished Schneider because he is a part of the shady cult. But Haru is just surprised that such an organization actually exists. He plays along with it and he reminds Schneider to call off their duel if he wants to be free from his spell. Schneider reluctantly agrees and Haru prepares to leave, but Toretta suddenly restrains him. She refuses to let him go without answering her questions, but he easily breaks free and traps her with his barrier instead. Poka tells her to apologize, but Toretta is just too interested by Haru's spell. However, she suddenly needs to pee, begging Haru to free her, and she promises to leave him alone. After this encounter, the group continues with their welcome party. Toretta gets them to drink and Iris ends up getting drunk, tries to get clone Haru to drink as well, pouring him a cup, but she ends up just drinking it herself. She then suddenly thanks him for being her friend and joining the lab with her, but she then just falls asleep. Toretta is also a bit drunk and she wonders if he knows why Iris is interested in ancient magic. Haru has no idea, so Toretta explains that when Iris's magic was measured she had an affinity with all the elements, but her level was only at level 5. She notes that although Iris is still growing, her level is unusually low for her age and it's possible that it might not increase any further, so that's why she is interested in ancient magic, because the people from that time were said to be over level 100, so she hopes to discover something that can help her level up. Toretta ends up falling asleep as well and clone Haru decides to call it for the night. Meanwhile, we see Schneider in his mansion throwing a tantrum over having to withdraw from the duel. He thinks it will damage his reputation and he can't accept it as the next future king. We learned that his father joined the cult in order to overthrow the monarchy and make Schneider the next king. He refuses to let Haru win, so he orders his assassin squad to kill Haru and his friends. But we see he is being watched. The assassins approach the lab and they know that everyone is asleep. We see that the assassins have brought over 20 elite men, so they are confident they will succeed. They immediately carry out the operation, rushing toward the lab. But it seems to be protected by a barrier. The assassins look around the whole building but find that it's completely protected. One of the men try attacking with a blade, but it has no effect at all. A door suddenly appears and the man tries to check it out, but he ends up getting pulled inside. The captain orders his men to destroy the door, but their spells just get swallowed up. There are even more doors that appear and the men start getting picked off one by one. Haru makes his appearance and the captain tries to attack him but just gets frozen by Haru's barrier. Haru ends up bringing all the men back to Schneider, asking him why he ordered the hit. Schneider denies everything, but Haru shows him a recording of him ordering the assassins. Haru prepares to give him another punishment, but Schneider suddenly injects himself with a syringe, transforming him into a demon. Haru was smashed out of the mansion and he wonders how he's going to deal with Schneider. He suddenly gets a call from Charlotte saying she got the feeling he was on duty. She is surprised to see he is fighting a monster, and Haru explains that it was the evil syndicate that transformed Schneider into a monster. Charlotte feels bad for him, so she asks Haru to save him, and Haru has no choice but to agree. He dodges Schneider's attacks, but he struggles against his strength. He tries attacking with his barrier, but he just ends up getting clapped. Haru is about to be crushed, but he uses his barriers to free himself and seal Schneider's arms. However, Schneider rips his own arms off, but he's able to instantly regenerate them. Haru doesn't know how to deal with him, but Charlotte points out that he became smaller after regenerating. So Haru thinks he can return Schneider back to normal by cutting off his overgrown body. Haru uses a new technique and he creates thousands of swords in the sky. Charlotte is amazed to see his new skill, and Haru rains his blades down onto Schneider, cutting away his overgrown body. Schneider returns to his original form and Haru tries to continue their conversation, but he just ends up running off. Clone Haru wakes up and he thinks about how the party was kind of fun. Haru teases him for enjoying it, but the clone thinks that it's an improvement from their previous life, and Haru also agrees, thinking about the people that they've met. The next day we see Flay and Liza gathering information in the capital. They are approached by a group of shady men who offer to help them, and they are led into an alleyway. But they just end up beating up the men and get the information they were after. We see them in another one of Charlotte's meanings. They have learned more about the power struggle for the crown, and Charlotte thinks that the capital is headed for trouble. Liza has her doubts, but Johnny reminds her of Haru's fight the previous night. Charlotte replays the highlights and they all admire Haru's new technique. Charlotte thinks Schneider must be a part of the evil syndicate, and she declares that it's their time to make a move, so she starts making plans for them to infiltrate the academy so they can expose them from within. The others all agree with her, but we see Haru watching them and he can't believe what they are getting up to. He decides to let them have their fun while he continues to watch over them and making sure nothing disturbs his peaceful life. And that's the end of the video. Don't forget to give me a like and subscribe to my channel. I will bring more excitement anime in the future. Thanks for watching. Bye.